All right. Hello, friends. Welcome to It's Not Just Dual Enrollment, it's Dual Overwhelm-ment. I am Katie Jordan. I am with the Parish Group. Malyn will, of course, be telling us all about herself and the really cool stuff that she did. But I just want to preface this with welcome to our conference run-through. So we are rehearsing and wanted to record this as a future resource. So you are learning alongside with us, and let's have at it, Malyn. Take us away.
Awesome.
I guess I will keep taking it away. Hello. I'm Katie. I am Senior Director of Slate Strategies with the Parish Group. We are a Gold Preferred Slate partner. We do fully integrated search in Slate. You can see my puppies here, which are easily the best part of me. And I will say that during Summit, I am remarrying my husband. Really excited about that. And I should mention, over a decade of experience in Slate as well.
Awesome. I too have two cute puppies. I am Malyn. I am the Director of CRM Systems at Harrisburg University. I've been here for almost 4 years, but I have also been a Slate user for over a decade now, ranging from admissions to advancement and everything in between. Today's session is going to look a little something like this. We're going to take a quick glance at the past to understand why HU chose to redesign our dual enrollment application. We'll then do a dive into our redesign process to understand how we chose to build out our datasets, applications, and portals. Finally, we'll take a look at how this year went for us. Afterwards, I'm going to hand it over to Katie. We understand that a redesign process requires time and user buy-in, and that may not be feasible for you right now. Katie is going to show you how you can still take some quick wins from this session back to your institution. Here at HU, we offer 2 types of dual enrollment. We offer on-campus dual enrollment, and we offer college and the high school. Today, we're going to be specifically focused on our college and the high school process. Each year, we receive between 1,200 and 1,600 applications from current high school students for dual enrollment. This year specifically, we offered dual enrollment at 80 high schools. We offered over 450 courses, and we had over 250 faculty teaching these courses. When we reviewed the application, looking at both the application build and maintenance required, we were able to identify several areas of improvement. From the build and maintenance perspective, it was ugly. We had over 1,000 prompts that each required different prompt conditions that had to be manually updated each year. Throughout the year, we would also get change requests, which required us going in and editing those complex prompt conditions multiple times a year. As years passed, those prompt lists only grew larger. We also didn't have a great way of reporting. We were storing our courses in 5 different fields using those prompt lists. We didn't have a great way of storing faculty information. And when we were asked about school participation numbers each year, we weren't able to easily pull that data. If that was not enough for you, we also learned that our enrichment team was using a suite of queries that they exported in order to populate an offline spreadsheet. I'll let you sit with that for a second. If you're anything like me, that may have made your blood start to boil a little bit. If all of the data originated in Slate, why couldn't we replicate that tracker to ensure that data was live and accurate? Overall, the old application was clunky. It was not operationally efficient, and it didn't allow for scalability. So we sat down and we did a deep dive with the team. We mapped out our as-is state and our desired future state outside of Slate before we did anything within the system. We knew from a sustainability and change management perspective, we needed to move away from our prompt lists and those complex form logic. We sat down and we identified the data that we wanted to be stored and how we wanted that data to be stored. Again, this meant a lot of whiteboarding outside of the system. From a reporting perspective, we wanted to think about our current reporting needs, but also our future reporting needs. and ensure that we were building a scalable process. Building custom datasets and entities was what we chose to go with because we wanted to be able to easily report on those related items in the future. By building a custom dataset for courses, that allowed us to move away from our complex form logic that existed within the application. We also came to the conclusion that we wanted a separate dataset for faculty. We made this decision because we were not just thinking about our current needs, but we knew that at some point that faculty dataset could be used to support our undergraduate and graduate programs in the future. Again, we wanted to build something that was scalable and could be used for other initiatives. So how did we do this? First, we built out our custom datasets. For us, we built out DE courses and faculty. Next, we created our course selection entity. Our scope here was application and DE courses. Once we had our dataset and entities created, we then built out our fields. Most of these field types are pretty standard. We have text, we have prompt, and we have some date fields. But a few of these are a little bit more unique. We have some related dataset row and dataset row query field types. And since we don't build these quite as often as others, we'll do a deep dive into these in just a little bit. Once we had our fields created, we started populating the data. For us, we chose to map our institutional course name to the record name and our course code to the key. Keep in mind that name and key are standard fields that exist when you create a custom dataset, so you do not need to create custom fields for those. On our course details tab, we're storing some additional course information. This information is used for course filtering and display options on the application itself. We also have some of those related dataset row fields here that link to other dataset records. Our related high school field is an example of this. If we take a look at the back end of the form, you'll see that we have an auto suggest to pull in the name of that dataset record for organizations. At the end of this deck, we've included the knowledge base article that will walk you through exactly how to build this. If we pivot and take a look at one of those dataset row query fields, we'll talk through how to build this. Again, there's a great knowledge base article at the end that we've linked for you. But to start, you're going to build a query. You're going to give it a descriptive name. You're going to share it. You'll place it into your system folder within this tab subfolder. You're, of course, going to be using configurable joins, and then you'll select your desired base. Once your query is created, you'll add your query parameters under Edit Web Service. Ours looks something like this. You'll add in any exports that you want to be displayed on the record, and then you'll add in your GUID filter and any additional filters that you choose to do. Once your query is created, that's when you can go and create a new field. Your scope will be record, your scope category, will be records, and your scope will be your data set. Your field type is where it's going to get different, and that's where you'll select your dataset row query. You'll be able to select the query that you just created. It's important to click over to the display tab so that you pick a tab for your query to display on. Once created, our results look something like this. As you can see, we are displaying all active courses on an organization record. And we're also displaying courses that a faculty is teaching on the faculty record. Next, we of course wanted to display the students' course selections on the application record within Slate. To do this, we built out an entity widget form. Once you have your form created and your scope set to entity widget, you'll select your desired entity and you'll include any exports that you would like to include. Our widget form was pretty simple. We had two fields here. One is mapped to the record GUID, and the other is mapped to the unique ID field. After creating the widget and placing it on the tab that you would like it to display on, our record looks something like this. This is helpful because, as you can see, it links out to the organization record, to the course record, and to the faculty record, all within one place. Now, let's discuss how we built out our application. Our goals of the build were pretty straightforward. We wanted the application to be as simple as possible for our students applying. And to do this, we wanted to ensure that we were capturing data at the appropriate time. With a few forms and an application management portal, we were able to accomplish these goals. We first started by building out a custom application management portal. A student will either log in or create an account. Once logged in, if the student does not have a high school on their record that is offering active dual enrollment courses, they will be instructed to add a high school. On the form, we are displaying a list of current high schools that have active course offerings within a select list. We chose to collect high school within a select list rather than a text box like we often see, to ensure that students were selecting the correct school and to also ensure that we were able to collect the high school SEEB code on the back end, as that will be a key data piece going forward within the application. Once the applicant submits that form, they are redirected back to the portal, and now there is a button to start their application. Upon clicking on that button, an application creation form will appear in a pop-up. This is where students will enter their biographical information. Once complete, students will click on Select Courses Now, which will take them to their remaining application pages. All other pages are pretty standard, but the course selection page is where we spent the most of our time during this build. So let's do a quick deep dive into this build. Students are allowed to select up to 5 courses, and we are limiting the course display to show only courses that are available at the student's high school. If we take a look at the back end of the form, we started by adding some merge fields. These merge fields will be used to control the display of our select list options on the course selection page. After we have our joins added, we can start building out these merge fields. For us, we join to the application and then to the person. We're joining to the high school rank 1, and then finally, we're joining to the organizations. First, we add a merge field to control the display of our select list options. In our case, we wanted to display the course name, the course instructor, and the term that the course was being offered. To accomplish this, we added a subquery export dictionary merge field. Say that 5 times fast. The course export controls the courses that are displayed to the student based on the high school selection from that first form. Next, we have a series of merge fields that populate the application if a student has already selected courses. So if they have started an application, but they have not yet submitted it. Because a student can select up to 5 courses, we have 5 of these merge fields. And our row offset matches the course number here. Once we have our merge fields created, we start building out the form itself. When we look at the form, it looks pretty standard. We have section breaks for courses 1 through 5. When we look a little bit closer, though, you're going to notice that our course selection fields are actually instruction blocks that use source code to allow that instruction block to look and act as a select list. Our source code is using our merge fields that we created and is saying if a student has already selected a course, then populate it. but if not, then show all courses that are currently offered at the student's high school. In each section block, we have 2 hidden fields. The first is mapped to the entity GUID field. A calculation formula is used to populate the field from the course selection using the form field ID. To find your form field ID, you'll inspect your form through the browser. If we expand that calculation formula, it'll look something like this, where the highlighted areas are the form field ID. Then we repeat that process, except for this time we are mapping to the unique ID field, and we do not have an auto-suggest. Again, we're using that form field ID to populate the calculation formula here. We expand that, you'll see where we populate from the form field ID. Now, let's pivot and let's discuss our staff management portal. Our goal of the portal was to build a centralized tool within Slate where stakeholders could view all data regarding dual enrollment, including course information, faculty data, and student data, to allow us to sunset those external spreadsheets and allow for easy updates to records of all types. On our homepage, we are displaying a simple funnel report. This is broken down by high school and status and displayed by workflow bin. On our faculty tab, we are displaying all faculty with an active course. We have some aggregates within our query to display how many active courses a faculty is teaching. This allows our enrichment team to do some quick verifications to ensure that the data that is in Slate matches what they are expecting. This was really helpful when we were testing the application. All rows here link out to the faculty dataset record, allowing for easy updates if needed. Similarly, we're displaying all active courses on the Courses tab, with some counts for number of applicants and number of students scheduled in each of those courses. The enrichment team does roster verifications throughout the year, ensuring that the number of students that are scheduled within a course matches the number of students expected. So this helped to streamline that process significantly. Upon clicking on a course, the user will see some additional information about the course. This links to the course record for easy updates, and they are also able to email the instructor directly from the pop-up if needed. Lastly, all applicants are listed on the Applicants tab. We have a similar pop-up that will appear, which will include all courses that a student is currently scheduled in, or currently selected, that they selected on the application. They are also able to contact the student directly through the portal pop-up by email or by phone. I don't know about you guys, but we like to build tools that our users are actually going to use. To encourage our users to use this type of portal, I like to throw in some bells and whistles, things that are not necessarily required, but take them to that above and beyond category. For this project specifically, we looked at the real estate that we had available on the portal, and we thought about other places that the users might frequently visit. For us, we chose to link out to the workflow. We're also linking to the application documentation, since that's frequently shared with both applicants and faculty. And then finally, we're linking to the homepage. If we take a look at how this year went for us, we saw a decrease in submission time. This year, 86% of our applicants submitted the application in 1 day. That's opposed to 64% of applicants finishing the application in 1 day last year. We also saw shorter application processing times. On average, it took a student 9 days to move from the application submitted status to the scheduled status. And that was almost double that 15 days last year. And the number of external spreadsheets that I know of and that I'm going to tell myself exists this year is 0, as opposed to far too many last year. We know nothing in Slate happens in silos. So thank you to the following people who gave us inspiration and was there to be a thought partner throughout this redesign process. Like I mentioned, we understand and we know that a redesign process may not be realistic in your future. I'm going to pass it over to Katie, who has prepared a toolkit of smaller solutions that you may be able to incorporate into your current workflow.
Okay, so this is the part where, like, I assume live people will just break out into a massive round of applause and, like, drown out this transition. Because, Malyn, that's such a cool build. However, if you do not have all of the time, all of the buy-in, if you want to start smaller, there are some other options. So I did build out a variety in my sandbox. They are all tested in real life. And I just want to give like the little asterisk of usually I do like a rank order of options while I'm presenting to either go from my least to most favorite or the least to most complicated. I usually have a secret order. It's not subtle. This time there's not an order. It's merely options based on structure and need. Okay, so just a couple options. We will be working through a person status exemption. We will talk about modifying the standard person status rules. We'll talk about, honestly, just using a form. And we'll also chat some about using populations. So going through all of these with their different pros, their cons, and how the builds each function. Okay, so our first up is using person status exemption. And I have a second asterisk. I did not invent this. I came across it in the community forums before the forums updated. I cannot find this post again. I cannot give full credit where credit is due. So I just kind of want to put out there, not my invention, works spectacularly well. Thank you to somebody. And step one is build a field. The field, we can see the screenshot here. It is scoped to person in order to fit in with the rest of the person status rules. Folder and category are up to you, but the field scope is not, and the field type should be bit. Step two, build a form. So we are looking really at a simple internal inquiry form here. The one that I'm using as an example is actually to move a student from being an undergraduate applicant to a graduate inquiry. So it is person scoped, and we're also using this opportunity to ask the student what they are interested in majoring in and when they would like to be considered as a graduate student inquiry for your drip campaigns, for your messaging, all of that good stuff. The return applicant to inquiry is the status exemption field. And then step three, build our rules to support this form. So we can see here a screenshot of my person status rules. We're going to chat a little bit more about the default ones in a minute, but we can see that the exclusivity group, the rank 1 rule, is return applicant to inquiry, taking priority over everything else. And if we dig into that, I feel like the screenshot's very small. If we dig into that rule and we squint, we can see that it is saying the form is submitted later than the application was started. And so then we have a nested subquery filter with a formula. The formula is comparing the rank 1 application created date to when the form was submitted. This is very clever, if I say so myself. I like the dynamic comparison because this is saying if they have started an application more recently than they were reset to an inquiry, they will become an applicant again. I've also seen this built based on application count. I've also seen it on form submission existing at all. So as always, the answer is it depends. There's a million ways to do this. Because it's also possible to batch manage form submission with an overnight process. Once a student has gone into their SIS, just go ahead and kick them back to being an inquiry. Step 4, if you are going with the person status exemption, is to go ahead and embed this form onto a student's dashboard. So I'm hovering over it in the screenshot so we can see that it is the, let's go seafoam green, the revert to inquiry. If we click on that, it pulls in parameters. We know all about my test record already. And then the fields that would have to be updated are my graduate start term and my graduate major. Just a full circle. So this works great for dual enrollment. This also works really well within a shared instance. I think this method is fantastic for allowing admission counselors a little bit more independence and ownership over the process if they're working with a student. It allows for the individual use case, and honestly, it's fairly easy to implement and maintain once it's going. It does, however, involve granular work, and something to think about is the natural drip of your communications campaigns, and if a student kind of hopping back and forth would have an influence on your timing. So, option 2 is talking about using person status rule modifications. So, as promised, these are now the standard out-of-the-box rules that come with an instance. If you have an older instance, this is just my plug to update to configurable joins, and they are built out for you as very clean examples in, spoiler, Clean Slate. So in order to customize these, I'm going to do something a little unusual, which is say, like, oh, just start outside of Slate and write down your order. Because you need to really think through this modification. The person status rules are likely very powerful in your instance. So things to consider are, what if somebody deviates from the order that we are setting? Kids do. What if in the future we are looking to add more functionality? What if we add student success? What if we add advancement? Heck, what if we add graduate programs? How will this be implemented? And thinking about where we are relying on status rules, if that is in your populations for communications, if that is in queries, if that is in reports. It could be any number of places in your instance. Where are we currently using status to define a population? So theoretically, for example, for fun, a quick example of a student starts as a prospect, they become an inquiry for dual enrollment, they become an applicant for dual enrollment, and then kind of so on and so forth, moving from prospect all the way to current student in this funnel. Little asterisk here because we haven't had enough of those. You may still need an exemption rule in order to move a student around. For example, if they start an application for undergraduate before they start an application for dual enrollment, how would that look for you in your system? Pros. This is building on existing functionality, and it does allow for more automation. I think this can be hard to implement unless you are implementing and building your structure around this. Again, likely due to the volume of things that are looking at status. You also probably need to combine this with the person status exemption that we were just chatting about in order to make this process work for a student doing things in whatever order they come up with. Third option is to talk about using a different round. So in this example, our kids are going through the standard application process. I'm a huge fan of the director on URL in this situation. Just send it out to your eligible high school so that you can leave it inactive. And that also frees them up to do the traditional undergraduate application without any confusion. So this is going into, if you have not made a director on URL before, go into database and then round and then find the ID at the very top there. And stolen directly from the knowledge base, it is your instance's URL with the question mark SR equals the round ID found at the top of the screenshot there. And then you can update your person's status rules to say that if they've applied to the dual enrollment round, keep them as an inquiry. So my logic is a little, I wrote this paragraph poorly, but basically they were looking for a rank 1 join, saying if in undergraduate, then applicant, yay. If dual enrollment, then inquiry. Now, what this means is if they apply to dual enrollment first and then later undergraduate, they will become an applicant at that point. And if they apply to be undergraduate first and then dual enrollment later, they will have already been an applicant. So the next slide clicks into this a little bit to say that the rank 1 application is in the round of undergraduate or graduate. And I'm looking at the round key on this build because that can be reused year over year. And the last thing that I want is someone needing to remember to click in here and update that every time. I think this allows for really easy communication for eligible students. I think it is great for reporting in your instance. If you have a different round, you will very likely need to do additional testing during cycle prep. And you may still, of course, want to think about your SIS integration query as well. If it's written on the application base and you are looking to use this to keep the dual enrollment students as an inquiry, you may run into hiccups. Populations are a great option. I think are we on our fourth option? I think so. Similar to working with person status rules, starting outside of Slate to define your process. So asking a lot of initial questions will get you to a better end build. So thinking about, can a student be in this population and another one, or will it be exclusive? How does that structure need to be? What defines this population? What information do I need about a person in order for them to qualify? Is there a time when a student should fall out of this population? And I think this has a little bit to do with current processes. There are some schools that use the same populations year over year, clear them out, refresh them. There are some schools who create new ones annually. The choice is up to you, but probably following whatever you're doing with that currently. So I wrote out some quick examples that I will not be reading out loud because that is extremely boring. But just thinking through in terms of start term, what your different students could look like. And keep in mind, you may wish to add things to this like, haven't visited yet, haven't applied yet. There's a million ways to think through population structure. But thinking about the fact that someone could be an inquiry as a senior for fall 2025, but they could also be a dual enrollment applicant for fall 2025. And being aware that those things can exist, but if a person has, as a senior, started an application, they should not be in the deposited application population yet. But if they are deposited, then they should not be getting the started messages. So thinking through all of the nuances there. I like this version. I think it gives you a lot. I was like, I don't have any bias. Oops, I do. I think that this allows for a lot of privacy for your users. You can customize different messages very, very easily. I do think this is also the best option for tracking when students enter populations. And it also has some tracking for when they can drop off of populations. It is, however, moving away from some of the default functionality of status rules. So a great option if you are implementing, because if you have already looked a lot at your person status rules, you may need to change a lot of your rules, queries, and reports. So option number 5, just for the fun of it. Everything that we've discussed so far involves an application. Gosh, what if they just did a person scoped form? This will look a heck of a lot like an RFI or just a standard FAST application. Well, spoiler, being a person scoped form. Malyn did a really nice look into the search by dataset. And so I'm going to do like a really quick field limited by population. So an organization scoped field, eligible for dual enrollment, yes or no, adding it to a custom organization tab, which can then be updated in an upload or individually. Yes, for the schools that are eligible. And then name a population dual enrollment high school and a rule to say if field dual enrollment eligible is yes, then yay, school in this population. And then build an incredibly quick configurable joins population-based query in order to define the GWID of your new population. Once you have that information, you take the GWID and you place it gently into your high school name field auto-suggest. And then I wrote out what the code is there, but it's the suggest school/name, comma, p, colon, and then place your GWID there. For the SEEP code, simply update to include the key after school. This is easy. It's easy to build. It is easy to track when students submitted. It is easy to report on. You can still have a person-scoped workflow and a portal if you want to. You can also just rely on internal fields on the form itself and deliver. This is a great option to avoid messing with your default status rules at all. But again, I do want to say, unlikely to natively flow into your SIS if that is on an application base. And depending on what piece of information you need to gather, recommendation forms do not play nicely on a person-scoped form. Or an application creation form, but that's a different topic. All of that is to say, there's a lot of ways to manage dual enrollment. The answer is at first almost always, it depends. So we are here to just present a lot of options to streamline your process, to make it a better experience for the students and for your staff. And we are happy to take any questions.